So these two guys go out. They come back at dusk. Mel's vehicle's still there. They shoot off some rounds. No response. They get an air horn. No response. So they go to the authorities, and the ranger, and then to the state police, and they got to wait X amount of hours because that's the law here in New Mexico. Maybe he, ran off with a torch singer, a leggy blondie, who knows what, and then they start the search. Now, this was one of the biggest searches. I'm going to say the fourth largest, but some people are going to disagree with me on that. But professional trackers, dogs, sniffing dogs, hunting dogs, volunteers, Cessnas, Hueys, those are the ancestors of the Black Hawk helicopters, you name it. And they find Mel's tracks. Mel's tracks go 110 yards away from the camp, and they just truncate. He does not go back on his tracks. There's no animal prints around his tracks. No mountain lion, no bear, no spent casings, no sign of struggle. He just vanished. And that was 7 years ago. And like others that have gone missing on up there, except for Stanley, they haven't found any clothing, any bone. None of his wealthy accounts had been tapped on into. Just disappeared. And when you talk about the missing and about the 14,000, well, that's one example right there of one guy that's just beyond belief. And like his wife said, people just don't vanish into thin air. Well, people will say, well, he stepped into some type of doorway, a portal opened on up. Possibly. Or was it a UFO that abducted him? Is he standing there? Was he chased on out there? Was something, this sounds, did something scare him that he ran out there? Did he see something? Did he hear something? Was he lured on out there by some type of shapeshifter? Who knows what? But the point being about that is these things do happen. And for those that are listening, go to the website, and you're going to see case after case that I've investigated on up there in this area. Emma Tress is another example of another lady who goes missing on up there. It's something that, if Rod Serling wrote it, Rod, that's too far on out. Yeah, but this does happen.
Well, I think they probably maybe were abducted, and when they were done with the being abducted, they disposed of them. A lot of people are abducted, and a lot of people just disappear. Then some people come back, and they're the lucky ones, like Timothy Cullen and a lot of people that maybe had implants, and again, maybe if they wouldn't have done an implant on him or made the decision to do an implant on him, maybe he would have been found somewhere dumped.
Or never found, yeah. One of the things about that is, again, with the late Dr. Lear, is about implants and these metal pieces that are put into a human body, some type of tracking device that, it's a version of what Marlon Perkins would have put on a rhino, on Wild Kingdom back in the 50s or 1960s. But is that how come, for example, the cigar-shaped type of craft or the spherical type of craft, is that how come they were on the edge of populated areas, or going over old Route 66 or I-25? Were they looking for someone? Is that what they were looking for? Because somebody, implant or something? It's, Now, some of I agree with you that people have been abducted, and you do have this unaccountable metal piece in them. But then again, too, unfortunately, I've come across some people who, geez Louise, you say to yourself, I hope they get help, because, that's what wrecks the UFO investigations, because you do have some people out there that do need mental help, and some of the whoppers that they come on up with, and the aliens like chocolate chip cookies and this kind of thing.
Or they've been talking to you telepathically, right? And there's 25 million UFOs circling the Earth right now, protecting Earth. 25
Yeah.
million UFOs. Now, okay, I tell you, I don't. Yeah, and that person really believed it. They wrote a book on it. You know, and hey, everybody has their own views. My gut feeling is 25 million UFOs that have been, circling around the earth for the last 5,000 years, protecting mankind. I don't believe that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I've unfortunately or fortunately have run into these type of people, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to quibble with how their antennas worked and how they wanted to eat their cookies and touch you and this kind of stuff here. And yeah, no, 25 million.
That's as bad. You know,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, there used to be a guy. He used to come in. I had a friend that owned a grocery store, and I hung around because he was cool. And there used to be a guy that come around, and he'd wait for the bus, and he had an earphone plugged into his ear. It wasn't attached to anything, and he was talking steady. And one day I couldn't resist it. Me and my friend went up to him. I said, well, we hear you talking. And he goes, yeah, I'm a secret agent. This is my radio. And we're looking at his earphone, and we're seeing the plug on the other end. It's not attached to anything. And he's getting all these voices in his head from this earphone. Okay, well, we know what your problem is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, unfortunately, when it comes to a lot of these disinformation shows, and there's a lot of them on TV, you're going to get some actress, actor, scale grade, etc., and they're going to say that they've gone through all these experiments here, and they don't know, diddly squat, and they're just saying things that the writer has done, and they're going to say, well, you know what the cattle mutilation is that it was because of this factor, or this happened, or because of the cow ate some poisonous roots or some poisonous weeds, and that's how come it died. So yeah, as far as the mainstream type of media goes, again too, they're going to try to get not people to that degree of with the earphone talking to nobody, but you will have people that will get the sheeple to go down the wrong direction, thinking, okay, well, all these cows, they're just ate poisonous herbs, and that's what happened to these cows. They just died there. And like you said, with the 14,000, they all went down one, My Darling Clementine. They went down with a minor 49er, and that was the end of those people.
Well, people embellish things too. They hear things, people exaggerate. People just flat out lie and believe it after a while. But, going back to Timothy Cullen, when he had that implant removed, when Dr. Roger Lear sent it into the lab, several labs, okay, it did have a silver base to it. But there was another compound with the silver, and they couldn't get into it. That was not and could not be compounded on Earth. Absolutely, he was told it was impossible. Now, the implant, is it to track people, or is it maybe to get their emotions? I have no idea what the implant is used for. So, I mean, it could be used for various things. I do think people are being implanted. They don't realize it. A lot of times, they'll say, oh, I saw a UFO and it only lasted 5 seconds, but it's a whole bunch of weird stuff around it. Well, maybe if they were hypnotized and regressed or went in and had a scan done on their body, they might find they have an implant. And they could be walking around and supplying information how humans think, their emotions, that their feelings and anger and love and all that stuff. Maybe we are telling some alien race, giving them our secrets away.
Well, yeah, secrets away, yes, to a degree on that there, as far as, rage and emotion and the good and the bad of it all. One of the things that always struck me that was about Betty and Barney Hill, these were two abductees, for those that in the audience. Betty and Barney Hill were abducted in September of 1961. And their story does ring true. It was in New England. Well, what was told to Betty was when she communicated with the aliens as they were doing the examinations on her, The alien said, we visited X amount of worlds. I think they said 13. But of all the worlds that we have investigated that has intelligent life, your world is the most wicked. So with that, us being wicked, us being humans and aggressors, that is one thing that we have over the aliens. In other words, is that, we are the Tasmanian devils of the galaxy, and with that we've got that ace card in the hole. They can be merciless, and they can be doing all these experiments to us, but there is something about the primitives that they want to know about, and they want to examine. So, in other words, we do have a few things working for us, even though they're negative, but they're working for us as compared to what these alien species lack.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. I don't know. As long as I don't get abducted, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Well, let me say, did you ever wake on up with a bloody nose at 6 years old in the middle of the night, and you cannot explain how that happened?
Well, I can tell you something. I don't know if I ever told you this, and I talked about it this past week or last week, since we're talking about UFOs and aliens. 74, New Mexico, in the desert with my then wife. Boy, I wish they would have got her. We were driving at night late, and all of a sudden, and I was in my GTO going fast. I don't remember what the speed limit was. I know it was really high compared to like Washington State, which had a 70-mile speed limit. I think it was like 100 or something. You could go through on the road. And I was doing the speed limit, and all of a sudden, the road lit up bright. The inside of the car was like daylight, if not brighter. And I pulled over thinking, okay, well, it must be a helicopter. I was in the military. I know what helicopters sound like. And I pull over, I get out of the car, and everything is really bright. That's the first thing I noticed. More brighter than daylight. Then I noticed there was absolutely no sound. Nothing. Just totally void of any sound. So I ruled the helicopter out, and I'm looking up in the sky, and it's the light is so bright I can't even hardly look at it. But within I don't know if it was 1 second or 3 seconds or 4 seconds, poof, it was gone. So I don't know what that was. If that was an encounter, then that was one hell of an encounter. But when I got back to the car, my wife was still there. So
check underneath your bed tonight for pods.
Well, I'm going to tell you another little thing about it. Michael W. Hall, he's a lawyer. He used to be a Superior Court Judge pro tem. Into UFO big time. He also is a legal attorney for Peter Davenport, the UFO Reporting Center. He's done stuff for Muthon, all this stuff through the years. I mean, he very knowledgeable. He runs a UFO I group, which they, had a real weird experience back in the 27th, 28th, and 29th of August, encounter of some sort. I never thought anything of my encounter back in 74. But in the 90s, I go to the doctor, for unrelated issues. But they do a complete, scan of my body and all this stuff, x-rays and MIR or whatever that is. And I'm sitting in the doctor's office, right? The head nurse comes up to me and she goes, Gary, where did you get that metal in the middle of your back? And I go, what metal? She goes, you got a piece of metal next to your spine. I can't remember what disc number it was or anything. And she goes, we're looking, when you've been here, there's no signs of any surgery there. Now, I did have surgery when I was in the military, my tailbone. Okay. But that's not in the middle of my back. I talked to the doctor, right? The doctor goes, you got this piece of metal in your back. We don't know how it got there. There's no sign on your back at all of any scar tissue, anything, that how it could have got there. And I started freaking out because I said, well, is it going to cause any problem? He goes, yeah, when you get older, your arthritis is going to set in that area and all this stuff.